States are rushing to try and change all of the net metering laws in the first quarter of this year. And spoiler alert, it's not to the benefit of the customer. The U.S. House of Representatives is seeking to eliminate all of the solar incentives that have been passed by the Biden administration over the last 2 years. And the price of solar and wind power continues to increase on the grid. I'm Jay Warmke with Blue Rock Station, and this is the news from the solar industry for the week of April 24th. Now, about 41 states in the first quarter of this year have taken action to try and modify net metering policies within their states. This is either through legislation or through regulations. Now, of the 173 different solar policy changes that have been pushed through over the last 3 months, 59 of them seek to modify net metering. Most of them are moving from paying customers retail to paying them what they refer to as avoided costs. Basically, avoided cost would be the wholesale cost to the utility for purchasing energy from some other source. About 45 of these regulations or changes are an attempt to better define or expand community solar within that state. Community solar being when a large solar array is installed and then customers can purchase a part of that rather than installing it on their own roof. And then 34 of these changes are essentially adding fixed fees or minimum bills to customers that have solar arrays. So basically, you can't get down to zero. You're going to have to pay the utility something as a result of these regulations. The Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives are seeking to overturn, first off, Biden's halt or pause on solar tariffs coming in from the 4 countries, Cambodia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Thailand. Now, those 4 countries historically, in the last few years, have accounted for about 80% of all of the solar panels that are used within the United States. Well, when the tariffs were imposed and it looked like there might be retroactive penalties if these were found to have been trying to violate tariff provisions by moving Chinese production to those 4 countries, essentially the supply chain of solar went into a spin and no one could get panels. So the Biden administration in June of 2022 put a 2-year halt. In the meantime, they then instituted the Inflation Reduction Act, which sought to provide incentives for companies to move their production to the United States from overseas. We've seen a lot of announcements in recent months of companies doing just that. But now the House of Representatives has said, well, we want to overturn the Biden administration 2-year pause. So that's going through the process. Although those who watch these things closely say once it goes through the House of Representatives, it will die in the Senate and it's all basically kabuki theater. But again, the House of Representatives, the Republicans in the House, hope to overturn all of the incentive programs from the Inflation Reduction Act, which have essentially put 10 years of very high incentives to try and transition the economy to a renewable energy economy. And as part of the debt ceiling, in quotes, negotiation between the House Republicans and the Biden administration, one of their demands is essentially to eliminate pretty much all of the provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act. So we'll see how that plays out. Prices of renewable energy continue to increase. Now, this is through power purchase agreements. Essentially what that is when a large developer of solar or wind sells the power to a utility or some other third party, such as Amazon, for example, then they enter into a power purchase agreement. Well, the prices within power purchase agreements for solar and wind increased a combined 6.6% in the first quarter of 2023, 8.5% increase for solar, about 4.9% increase for wind. Now, this continues a trend over the past 2 or 3 years where we've seen the price of renewable energy skyrocket, essentially. From the first quarter of 2020, the price of power purchase agreements has increased from about $27 per megawatt hour, or if you want to move that down, it's about 2.7 cents per kilowatt hour. It's increased about 92% all the way up to $52 per megawatt hour for these power purchase agreements. Now, this is largely due to COVID issues, supply chain issues caused, as we mentioned, about the tariffs, the Uyghur legislation that's in place about buying products from a province in China. That's caused some delays, and the decommissioning of fossil fuel plants across the country, plus the adding on of the tariffs, which added 25% or so to the cost of solar panels. So we've seen all of these things combining. It is basically strict just market capitalism where the demand for renewable energy is outstripping the available supply. Hail Sense 360 is a new product that's been introduced into the market. They just announced it. What this does, it's primarily for larger utility solar systems, but it can forecast up to 90 minutes ahead of a hailstorm and perhaps allow the utility to then turn the panels, because many of these things are trackable, turn the panels to avoid damage from that hailstorm. We've seen a lot more hail events, a lot bigger hail, a lot more frequently, and this is causing severe problems to renewable energy systems. Specifically, West Texas seems to be hardest hit. Studies show that if you can turn those panels, the survivability is going to increase from about 82% from a major hailstorm to up around 99%. It also will provide post-event data, let the developer know how much damage they have been inflicted upon the system, data for insurance company settlements, things like that. Some of these storms, for example, in 2019, there was a large hailstorm in West Texas, the Midway Solar Project, and actually 400,000 out of the 685,000 solar panels in this array were damaged by hail. Insurance estimates say about $70 million in losses just from that one event. So this is increasingly a big deal. Well, that's the news from the solar industry for this week. We'll see you next week.